Hey everyone! In the following podcast, you'll hear the edited audio of Sienna's live Instagram interview with Michelle Sewell from Hack Theatre, who presented a series of short films and interviews which explore inclusivity in the arts industry. Do you want to learn how to ensure we're making the arts and culture industry more accessible and diverse? Well, get ready for practical insights from Michelle. I hope you enjoy it.
How are you anyway?
Yeah, good. I think I'm good. I don't know what good looks like anymore. It's kind of like today is good, yesterday was all right, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. So I think,
become a bit relative. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's the concluding day of Unmute, and I'm really excited to hear how the week's been for you. So for people who haven't heard of Unmute and Hack Theatre, would you like to just introduce the project and what your role has been in that?
Yeah, so Hack Theatre is a socio-political theatre company. It's mostly just me. So even though I say it's a company, I employ like some freelancers. It was set up in Norwich, and so really talking about and reaching out to regional theatres, and a lot of our work has been just kind of regionally based, and really trying to champion those diverse voices that I felt kind of going to Norwich you didn't always see. So, and also just in the theatre industry in general. So Unmute really is and has been like a really great fulfillment of a passion of mine to just reach out to like amazing artists who are just trying to stay creative in whatever way they can during lockdown. So it's about advocating for inclusivity in the arts. It's about how we can be creative and stay connected with not only our creative communities, but just whatever communities we were part of in whatever physical space we were before, how we can maybe continue to bridge that gap even through screen exhaustion, even through a crisis, and just how we can help each other.
Wonderful. I'm sure many people find it as an interesting resource to watch and listen to the time when people might be creatively exhausted. Wonderful. So why did you decide to start Unmute? When did it begin? Was it kind of at the beginning of lockdown, halfway through? What prompted you to start this project?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because it feels like such a blur. So as soon as lockdown happened, I just come off a show, Border Control, which is at Bolts. Literally, my last outing was going into Bolts, taking down the set and taking it home in an Uber, and then we were locked down on that Monday. And it was really, I think the impulse was more about, I think it comes from my experience of being a sister of disability. So I have a sister with Down syndrome. And whenever I've been in a crisis, which has happened in my family when my sister's gone into hospital, my dad's gone into hospital, I'm very much like, right, what do we have to do? How do we fix this? I'm a fixer. So it was like, okay, right, the theatres are closed, but we have to stay connected. We have to be with family. So how do we fix this? And so I just felt like, I was doing a walk with my partner one morning, and I was like, I don't know how to be creative. I don't know what to do. And he just said, well, what would you usually do if you're not feeling inspired? And I said, I'd reach out to artists. And so that's how it was. And I just thought of, not only having an interview and just chatting with them, getting inspiration, stealing ideas from them as well. I definitely have done that. But as well, just kind of like getting them to create an adaptation piece of just 5 to 10 minutes, just kind of, delve into this idea of what does adapting mean during the crisis. And I think they've all done that just really brilliantly. So yeah, that's kind of how it started off.
Amazing. I like the idea of just kind of reaching out to people, because when I watch the videos, it's very much a casual chat, like you've met up for coffee at your favorite coffee shop, and you're just talking about what could be next in their future and the future of the arts. And I think that's encouraging a kind of informal chat at a time when, some digital engagements people feel uncomfortable engaging in. So and particularly for those who feel marginalized, I think it could be really helpful.
Yeah, it was it was so interesting because some of the artists I knew really well, like Sean I did my master's with, you know, we did a whole journey together with that. You know, Christina, I did Edinburgh with her, like when she was doing her one-woman show, I was doing my one-woman show, and that's how we met. But then artists like Athena and Coco, I'd seen their work and I'd really loved their work, but I'd never been able to engage with them before professionally. So it was just an opportunity to just reach out. And actually, I think what I kind of felt back from the artists and what I felt, you know, I mean, I was sitting on my bed, you know, like when I was doing these, I think people just wanted to chat and people just wanted to say how they felt about this new world view. And I think that was how we were able to really connect. Some of the interviews as well, like the interview with Christina, went for 2 hours. So it's not just the half an hour that you see. There's a lot of kind of work that kind of went on and just talking through how we were feeling as well, just to help make the artists comfortable and make sure that we can really delve into some really serious issues and topics of conversation, like with Athena talking about she talks about the trauma of being a woman in a disabled person's body. And that is a really hard-hitting theme. And she was so open and honest. And I feel really humbled to have been able to connect with them in that way.
And kind of going into that about delving into topics that are hard to talk about in any circumstance. What was it like, you make theatre, you go into local settings, as you say, and then to transform that into a socially distanced setting? So you're wanting to delve into some of the issues that the artists are passionate about, but it's over Zoom or whatever platform that you're using. How did you go about that, like not being there in person and the challenges that might have faced?
It was a mixture of like, well, we just have to do this, real sense of, well, this is the only way we can do it. Sometimes the internet connection, in the videos, sometimes the sound doesn't quite add up to the video. I mean, that could be my poor editing skills, but a lot of the time it was just, that's what we had to work with. And that was very important that we honored that. And I think just honoring that experience of this is where we're at. But I think for me, the whole crux of this whole thing has been well-being, flexibility, and community. There were some days where I wasn't feeling particularly great, so I'd have to cancel. Some days, some artists would be like, you know what, can we reschedule? Can we do a different time? All that kind of stuff was really, really crucial in actually being like, you know what, yep, that's fine. You have to do what you've got to do today, and then we'll catch up later. So this series, to be honest, the series has been delayed by about a month, maybe 6 weeks. But I feel like that has created like a more quality product, and it's enabled us to work over Zoom and just be like, we've never worked like this before, so let's try and do something. And I've really enjoyed it, actually, because some of the artists, I wouldn't be able to be in a space with all of them. You've got to travel, you've got to, Christine's in America, James is in Australia. I wouldn't be able to work with them if I couldn't do it over Zoom. So that's been really, really exciting.
Definitely. It kind of gives you an excuse to reach out to people who you won't be able to work with anyway, I guess, in different time zones.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, especially during the peak of this, when I was working on this, I knew where everyone was. They couldn't hide from me. It's like, I know you're at home, but I can reach you. So that was quite nice.
I'm interested to hear from you. Obviously, you've had the week of videos that are now out and talking to different artists. Has there been one particular story or circumstance that has really struck you that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I don't know if it's story. I feel like all of the artist stories have just been really amazing and really thought-provoking. But I think the main thread that I really took away, and I really felt comfort from actually, was this idea of being productive and actually not being productive, like being creative. So, we don't need to focus on how productive we're being. Like, oh, I've written 5 scenes today. Like, that's not necessarily productive. It's actually like, Athena has taught a toddler how to count to 3 in English. Asha has learned how to do acrylic nails. and Sean is baking cakes and breads for his community. And that's creative, and that's really inspired me to actually be like, yeah, what type of creative thing could I do that isn't productive in our notions of it? And also the fact that time is on our side. Like, we are in lockdown, even though it's easing up, we still don't know what's happened. Like, the concept of time, for me at least, is out the window. And it's okay. Like, if something doesn't get done today, we've got tomorrow. So we don't need to stress about that and put that pressure on ourselves. And I hope that we can really take that away.
Definitely. That's really interesting, and I think will be an encouragement to many people, especially the idea of time. The idea of time is broken down, and it'll be interesting to see how people reconstruct that or not, and how we move forward from there. If we move on to really what Unmute is about, which is inclusivity. You know, it focuses on artists, but the broader theme is inclusivity in the arts. And I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on what you think the main barrier is to the arts industry becoming more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I definitely don't want to sound like a bit of a gloomster or whatever Boris Johnson wants to call people who are a bit challenging of these views, but I really feel like, you know, it's what Coco says. It's, you know, it is really difficult to reconstruct and rebuild and transform a whole industry that is based on white male playwrights. But as she says, no one's going to cry for you, just do it. Like, it is going to be a challenge. And I think the fact that we have built a lot of our infrastructure on this and on these notions of whiteness and the male gender is really dominated that. I think we really need to look at how we can really change, not only within ourselves, and be, again, just honest and open and humble, and just go, okay, well, what can I learn? How can I educate myself? You know, we have, as we've said, we've got the time to just educate ourselves, find the resources, and go see someone else's work who, you know, who maybe you wouldn't have seen before. And maybe you think, oh, I don't know if that's my cup of tea. Just check it out. You know, like, it's all online. You don't really have to pay for anything anymore. Let's just, you know, really look at what other people are doing and try to be inspired by that. And I think that's the only way out for us. And I think, you know, this idea of going back to normal and going back to the theatres, for me, that implies that we're taking a step back. I think everything that's happened with COVID, it's just revealed the injustices and vulnerability of society. And if we take a step back, we're not being truthful to ourselves.
It's the idea of returning to normality, whereas really normality, you know, we can get nostalgic and think that normality was perfect, but in reality, we can only move forwards. And I think Unmute is very encouraging in that sense. Now, before we move on to another question about inclusivity, just wanted to remind anyone who's viewing that you can ask questions about Unmute, about being inclusive in the arts, any questions that you might have about the project in the comments, and we will get to them. So please do ask any questions that you might have. All right, the next question is about individuals. So if a young artist is at home, maybe working on their craft, and they feel very passionate about the injustices that you've mentioned, how can they go about bringing a larger transformation about in the industry? Do you have any practical tips for young people?
Yeah, I think, first of all, amazing. Like, if you're doing that, then fantastic. That's what the arts needs to see right now. So brilliant. Practical tips, I think, and things that I really wish I'd learned, because you know, I've learned so much even just this year, for just being more inclusive, making my work more accessible. That's been a real driver for the last maybe 3-4 years, and this year it's really been propelled and excelled with that, mostly because of Arts Council funding and able to have the money to do that. So I think practical steps that you can really do going forward is, like, first of all, thinking about just how can you caption your work? How can you ensure that your work can be viewed by people who may be deaf or hard of hearing or have any sort of differently abled abilities? So BSL interpreters are amazing, amazing people. And I think we should definitely be working with them more. Coco integrates BSL in one of her performances. So definitely take a look at that kind of stuff. Look at how, we're looking at digital. So how can we do video, audio? How can we use different mediums to actually, for it to be a different viewing experience for different people? And I think as well, just kind of don't be afraid to reach out to organizations who are working in the subject matter that you're working in. Even this morning, I was talking with Hijinks Theatre because I'm working on a one-woman show with a woman with Down syndrome. So we're just talking about how to make the R&D a really accessible experience. So I got so many amazing tips that I would never have thought of. So just reaching out to those people, and you can apply for money from Arts Council England for that, and just keep on asking questions.
I think Unmute is an example of that, as you mentioned earlier in the interview, that how really is an excuse to speak to other artists and hear about what they've been getting up to, and I guess that's a great place for young people to start bringing about change. So thank you for that. I'm interested to hear what you've been consuming in lockdown. So you've been working on this project, but what's inspired you? What have you been watching or listening to or reading that's had a great impact on you over the past few months?
Yeah, so I've been so bad with podcasts. I just feel so overwhelmed by just information. Sure. So I've not really, been listening to much or even reading that much, to be honest. But some TV shows that I really loved during the summer. I've binge watched Killing Eve with, I think, half the country. I May Destroy You, of course, is just such a powerful, powerful show, which I'm still watching. And actually, recently, I just finished watching Mrs. America on BBC, which was I thought that was really interesting. But so what I've actually been doing is playing a lot of games. So there's one really kind of inappropriate game for lockdown, which is called Organ Attack, which some of my friends introduced me to, which during a pandemic seems a bit weird, but actually strangely really fun to play. So I've been doing that kind of thing as well, just with my partner and with some friends.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. It's been really, really interesting to find out more about the project. I just wonder if you could give people a heads up of where to go to find Unmute, find the videos, and also more about the work that you do at Hack Theatre.
Yeah, so just keep in touch on Twitter is the main port of call for us. Also, of course, our website, hacktheatre.co.uk. Keep an eye out, and in the near future, in the next couple of months, as I mentioned, I'm working on a one-woman show, which is a adaptation of Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw, or we know it more fondly as My Fair Lady. So we're doing an adaptation of that from the point of view of a woman with Down syndrome, with Sarah Gordy, Hannah Pascal Keegan, and Ben Wetherill, all from Jellyfish. So it's been a really, really exciting project so far. So we're mostly working on that.
That's very exciting, and good luck and best wishes for the project. And again, thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful to hear from you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really fun.
Today's episode was made possible by Voice Magazine, an online platform for young people interested in art and culture. You can read Voice over at voicemag.uk and find it on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook as VoiceMagUK. The Voice contributors are also on Instagram over at voice.extra. If you are looking for another podcast to listen to, the contributors release the Voice Extra podcast every Saturday, where they talk about the pieces they've produced and the culture they've been enjoying. If you like this podcast, please consider helping us to make more with a donation of any amount at voicemag.uk/donate. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod for the use of the track Thief in the Night. You can find more of his work in computech.com. Tom Inniss was the executive producer.